Hello everybody and welcome back for another episode of Indie Impressions. My name is Nick and today we're going to be checking out something called Downtown by developer R Hunter Go. This is one of the first games that I've covered so far in this cycle of the new 7-day FPS game jam where developers create an FPS in 7 days. It's kind of right there in the title, isn't it? So this one was actually made in a very short time, only 3 days because the developer was sick. And honestly, I'm basically showing this one off on just sheer enthusiasm alone. There's almost no content to it, but I love the idea of it so much, and it's so colorful and makes me just really happy. So I just wanted to show it off to you guys, and I hope you enjoy it, at least at this level where it is right now. Just at face value, but also the developer has made a comment that this will also potentially be developed further, so, I want to encourage that if possible too, because I think it's a freaking sweet idea. So, let's just click to start, and I'll tell you what's going on. In fact, you'll see what's going on instantly. This is an FPS game set in a big old colorful ball, and we can see in every direction at the same time, and the floor is always wherever we happen to be walking. So we just have basically anti-gravity, and I just love the perspective of this so very, very much. So we're just going to walk around and shoot some of these spheroids, and it kind of reminds me a little bit of that old SNES game, Faceball 2000, except maybe a little bit more colorful and a little bit more high-tech, but it's got a similar sense of irreverence, even though very likely these ball enemies were just because, placeholders, that happens, that's not a big deal. But I love the fact that the developer chose to make everything so freaking colorful and wild. I also love the fact that you can look up, and that's basically your map. Like, if you get lost, you just look for a section wherever you miss some of these spheres, and then you can just kind of mosey in that direction and hopefully find some more stuff to shoot. It's probably just by virtue of the fact that this is not finished, but there's also a little, a troubleshooting dialogue thing that shows up in the top left corner there just to give you notifications, but it's kind of interesting to me that all the numbers and all of the locations that you can shoot seem to be individually numbered. So if I shoot, that's enemy 12, that was enemy 47, that's enemy 46, that's enemy 7, and then all of the hexes on the ground, that's quad 635, that's 571, that's cylinder 629. So it's just kind of interesting to me that all of that was mapped out, and you could, in theory, make some things that would trigger from just, shooting one of these individually. I'm also not sure if this is actually maybe randomly populated by enemies and cylinders each time you start it up. I mean, kind of hard to be able to say, wouldn't it? Just by virtue of the fact that this is all so nebulous, there's not really much to give away any hints on, where things would be each time from the next time. But, I would love to see this eventually develop into something even bigger, and I'm just imagining what if you could adapt this perspective into something like, Halo, to give an example, just because they've already toyed around with the idea of you being on a massive ring. What if you were able to just walk around the outside of that and look up and see, there's enemies up there, and they're all just kind of hanging out? Of course, the scale would have to be much, much more massive, but, with the technology that's available to both the developers and the end users at this point, something like that could actually be possible, where you can see off into the distance for miles and potentially make plans about where you're going to go based on that sort of thing. I mean, the latest Killzone game, actually, for the PS4, not that I'm a huge fan of that series or anything, but it did actually do some pretty cool stuff with massive draw distances. So I think maybe that could be, a future of where we might see some more FPS games go. I mean, also Arma, by the way, Arma 3 has some very massive draw distances as well, but I think they kind of lose a little bit in the amount of detail that's necessary to render things at that distance. If you keep things somewhat kind of cartoonish with that perspective, you might have a better chance of being able to show it in a way that actually is a little bit more helpful from a gameplay perspective. I'm imagining maybe something like Lovely Planet might benefit from something like this, where maybe you could have a level where you need to race through a three-dimensional sphere like this. And I just loved seeing the perspective shift as you walk from what is the ground to a wall to the ceiling, and it just sort of dynamically happens around you. I'm actually amazed that I could even talk for this long about this, because again, there's so little content. I'm just running around shooting these spheres. But is this not something that just kind of excites you to look at for some reason? It's just something about the dynamism of seeing all these colors and the random nature of the fact that we can walk around on the walls and ceilings. There's just something really cool and refreshing about that. Kind of takes me back a little bit to one of the first times I realized that 3D was going to be a thing. It happened in a very unconventional way. I was playing this game called Bug on the Sega Saturn, and that's kind of when it clicked for me that oh, see those things off in the distance? We could walk over to those. you know, I've played Mario 64 before and everything like that, but for some reason it didn't quite have the same impact as seeing it in that, where there was actually like things way far away from you that actually were rotating and looked like you could interact with them. So of course, you know, that sort of was interesting to me, and I didn't realize that that was going to become such a huge factor in games going forward. And you know, these days it's the factor. But anyway, I've never seen a perspective quite like this, and it sort of is striking to me that there's still things like this that could blindside me to this degree that I go, wow, this is just fascinating to behold, and now I just kind of want to walk around through this for a while and just let the cylinders go past. Imagine, too, what if we were steering this sphere that we seem to be walking inside of? Maybe there's like a meta perspective we could see from the outside. In the top right corner, you have a little picture-in-picture, and we could be driving a little hamster ball through a bigger world that also might have things going on. And imagine that. Imagine if just in one spot on the cylinder, after you kill all the enemies, a door would open, and then you need to line this up inside of a bigger cylinder or a bigger sphere, so you can escape this sphere into a larger one that would then have the other one rattling around inside of it or something like that. The meta levels of that could get very, very chaotic and weird, but I like the ideas nonetheless. So, you know, this is a thing that I find really cool. I hope you enjoyed it as well. There's not much more to be said other than I've cleared out all the spheres, it looks like, out of this Metasphere, and this is downtown, so if you want to go give this a try, you can feel free. There's a download link. You can also play it right in your browser, whichever is more suitable to you. It actually ran just fine in the browser as well. But, you know, feel free to give it a try. Let me know what you think in the comments, and, of course, keep your eyes peeled for more from this developer in the future. I certainly am going to be. And, of course, if there's any updates to this game in particular, I'll be totally happy to cover that again in the future, because this seems like a really cool idea. So I will see you all back for another one fairly soon. If you enjoyed this video, consider leaving a like on it. It helps encourage the series to keep going forward, to hopefully reach at least 1,000 consecutive episodes. We're not too far off, maybe another, month and a half, 2 months, something like that. And I will see you back for another episode tomorrow. So have a great night, everybody. I'll talk to you all later.